everybody, and welcome to episode number 6, which is also the first episode in English. And since I'm a native Swedish speaker and English is only my second language, it might not be perfect, but I hope we will be alright. I've been spending this Christmas watching a crazy amount of videos showing supermarkets in China or apartments in Russia and so on. Things that are exotic to me, but of course is everyday life for the Russian and the Chinese. And that's how I got the idea. Let's do a horse version. But before we start, I would kindly ask you to subscribe, comment and like. That would make me very, very happy. Thank you. My horse Greven and I both live in the southern parts of Sweden, and I keep him at a communal stable about 7 kilometers from my house. I will say this is a very typical Swedish stable. In Sweden we have a lot of converted dairy farms as stables, and also lately a lot of loose housing facilities. But this is the kind that was built in the 90s as a training facility and a riding school, and there are plenty of stables like this all over Sweden. The stable might not be shiny and glossy, but it's safe for the horses and everything is functioning. And if you think it looks a bit messy, it's because we could use a bigger tack room, and also because every horse has got their hay bags in front of their stalls. I mentioned earlier that this is a communal stable, but that's not entirely true. The riding club who owns the stable has a man hired to do the feeding and letting the horses in and out on weekdays. And for an additional fee, you can get him to change blankets and such. On weeknights and weekends, we, the horse owners, take turns on letting them in and out and feeding them. They get the first meal of the day at 7 a.m. and it's a pre-packed bag of hay and a bucket of grain which each horse owner prepared the night before. Greven gets 11 kilos of hay a day divided into 4 meals. Our stable uses hay silage with a dry matter of about 70%. And I would say that that kind of silage is the absolutely most common way to feed horses in Sweden. We buy the silage from the riding club and we pay about 3 kronor per kilo. The prices can vary a lot between different regions depending on that year's harvest. Each horse owner has to get their own grains for their horse. And of course there are a lot of different kinds to choose from. I choose this one for Greven, and it's 18.25 kronor per kilogram. It's very common in Sweden to feed with some kind of pre-mixed feed, although I think that cubes are more common than this muesli. When the horses have finished their breakfasts around 8 a.m. ish, it's time for them to go out in their pastures. Each horse got their own pasture, but we are allowed to share if we can find another owner who wants to. I think it's more common generally in Sweden to keep them in groups rather than alone, and that's the one thing I'm not totally pleased with at this barn. But unfortunately I'm yet to find someone who is willing to let their horse be Greven's pasture mate. And this place is so great in so many other ways. So this is how it's got to be for now. And there's also always other horses nearby. And the pasture is quite big for one horse, and as you can see, filled with green grass in the summer. So it's up to each horse owner to keep the pasture clean and that to see to that there's always clean and fresh water. Keeping the pasture clean, it's not such a big deal in the summertime, but it can be a bit of a struggle in the winter. Although our pastures are not the muddiest I have seen in this country. Welcome to muddy Sweden. And then between 11 and 12 a.m. it's lunchtime for the horses. It's a pre-packed bag of hay. The horses stays out in the pasture, hopefully enjoying themselves, till around 4 p.m. when it's time to go in for yet another bag of pre-packed hay. At my stable, each owner has to get the bedding for the horse themselves. I choose to use wood pellets, and I use about 2 bags a week, and they cost 80 kronor each. I think even more common to use in Sweden is wood shavings or straw, and some use peat moss. We muck out our own stalls, and since labor is so expensive in Sweden, that's the most common thing to do, even though there are facilities that provides that service. And of course we also have to clean and fill up the water buckets. There are automatic waterers in each stall, but I think it's a better way to keep track on your horse's drinking habits to give them water in a bucket. In Sweden, a whopping 90% of all riders are women, and this stable is no exception. Oh well, all the riders in this stable are women. The only men we see here is the fathers of the younger riders or some occasional boyfriend or brother who comes to visit. In Sweden, riding is somehow considered a girl's sport, and boys who ride can get bullied for it in school. I have no idea how it came to this. We even have a female barn cat named Selma, who doesn't like to be disturbed. The most commonly used horse breed for riding in Sweden is the Swedish warmblood, or some other similar European warm-blooded breed. We also have a lot of retrained trotters, since harness racing is such a big sport in Sweden. Icelandic horses is also big in Sweden, and of course we have all the common pony breeds. And the Irish people has been very successful with selling horses to Sweden, so we got a lot of Irish crossbred ponies too. And let's not forget about our own breeds, the Gotland pony and the North Swedish working horse, of course. I know I said earlier that this is a very average Swedish stable, but one thing that stands out above average is the indoor arena. Not only is the footing superb and well maintained, it's also quite large. It's 25 by 80 meters. And since the riding school closed down some years ago, you rarely find yourself riding amongst more than 2 to 3 other riders at the same time in the indoor arena. The winters in Sweden is cold and dark, and since I'm doing, or at least trying to do, dressage, I'm very pleased to have access to an indoor arena. Here where we live, temperatures can vary between about 20-25 degrees in the summer and down to about 10 to 15 degrees below zero in the winter. And it also gets dark around 4 p.m. I tried to find statistics on how many riders who have access to indoor arenas in Sweden, but I couldn't find anything. But my educated guess is that the group that don't have access to an indoor arena is larger, than the group that do. But as I said, that's just an educated guess. We also have a pretty decent outdoor arena to use when it's not too windy, too rainy, too snowy, or the ground is frozen. The lighting is, as you can see, also quite good. So that's a nice thing to have. And since this barn is in the countryside, there's also a lot of gravel roads and woods to ride in. And since the winters in Sweden is either deep frozen or muddy, it's really nice to have a shower stall to clean their hooves and legs. We have both hot and cold water here, so of course you can shampoo the entire horse if the weather allows it. The shower stall is also a very good thing to have, since it saves you a lot of time trying to brush the legs clean. Many, or perhaps most, horses in Sweden wear rugs in the winter. There are horses that go without and are perfectly fine. But Greven is born in Spain and doesn't get that much of a winter coat. And I also think it's a very good way to keep the most of the mud away from the body. The one he's wearing now is his warmest. He's also got one semi-warm for early spring and late autumn. And last but not least, he's got one to protect him from the insects in the summer. Oh, I almost forgot. He's got a lighter one for the rainy days in spring and summer too. This stable's got 3 of those grooming stalls, which we obviously use to groom the horses in, but also for the farrier to use and for getting the horses ready for riding. At this stable we got one of those yellow lockers to put our things in. And we also get 2 bridle hangers each, and 2 saddle racks, and all the space above and under. And as you can see, our tack room is really packed. And since this is mostly a communal stable, of course it's our duty to keep the place neat and to clean up after ourselves and our horses. Most often I exercise Greven in the late afternoon or early evening, and after he's done I like to give him another meal. I then feed him lucerne and flaxseed pellets, and that's his absolute favorite meal of the day. It's also very common in Sweden to use beet pulp as horse feed. At 8 p.m. it's time for the last meal of the day for the horses. It's a pre-packed hay bag and a bucket of grain. And after that it's lights out and time to sleep. And so that's it. The 24-hour tour at the Swedish yard is over. And I feel that there's so much more I wanted to tell you about the equestrian life in Sweden. And if you liked it, of course I can do more episodes like this. Let me know in the comments, please. I also feel that some of my Swedish viewers won't agree with everything I said in this video, but you have to remember that I made this video from my perspective. And also, this is a very large country, and life in northern Sweden isn't the same as life here in the south. Anyway, I hope all of you enjoyed this episode somehow, and I would once again kindly want to ask you to subscribe, to comment and to like. And I hope you will come back for the next episode. Bye bye!